It is the 16th of the 7th, 2025. The time is 25 minutes to 9, meaning therefore one thing. There are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. 3 topics on the docket today. In the first instance, we'll talk about Tsunoda-san, because word on the F1 curb, if that's something in which you can be invested, is that Tsunoda-san is gonzo at the end of this year. They won't extend him. He's Honda's man, not an Oracle Red Bull Racing man. That was always the sentiment, and we will see that come into play as soon as 2026. In the second instance, we'll talk about Matt Bishop, right? God tier F1 journal, one of the God tieriest ones, has penned an article on the circumstance that is Christian Horner. There is no in the know guy better than this one at putting pen to paper and articulating it. He's Leonardo da Vinci with a pen instead of a brush and an easel. Crackosaurus, you're a legend. It's techier than techie things as far as this article is concerned, from Mr. Matt Bishop over at Motorsport magazine. We'll go through. There's going to be lots of reading today, but I promise you it's worth it. And finally, your main event is, of course, Maximilian Verstappen. It's an article on Planet F1 that talks to the ever-evolving circumstance, buyout clauses, Maximilian Verstappen scratching now, clawing with a view to get out of that Red Bull contract, allegedly. We'll talk about Ola Kalunius potentially rubber stamping an effort, an endeavour from the boys and girls on Brackley and Brixworth to get himself one Maximilian Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion. Potentially in the first instance, let's talk to Tsunoda-san, who didn't see this coming. Only the abbots of unreason among us. Tsunoda-san had his try, had his best effort, but he's been far too far adrift of one Maximilian Verstappen. You saw the super times already relative to Checo Perez and Liam Lawson before him in terms of absolute pace in qualifying. One Tsunoda-san has been the worst of the 3. Oh, the humanity. Who knew? I thought Tsunoda-san was going to come in and smash this. This is the job that he'd been waiting for. This was his moment. Your opportunity comes once in a lifetime, Tsunoda-san. Do not miss your chance to blow. And he's come in and done exactly that. He's blown it at the altar of performance in absolute terms, and the word on the F1 curb is that he won't see it through. He won't be a Red Bull driver in 2026, not just Oracle Red Bull Racing, but Racing Bulls too. They won't demote him because, again, Honda as an engine manufacturer now have themselves a working relationship with another team, the Green Machine, Aston Martin Cognizant F1. So why would Red Bull do Tsunoda-san any favours? Word on the F1 curb is that Tsunoda-san, Honda at the altar of Tsunoda-san have been paying Red Bull anywhere between 10 and 20 million, an additional 10, an incremental 10, rounding up to 20 therefore, to get him the promotion alongside one Maximilian Verstappen. That won't happen next year. Honda will be invested in Aston Martin. That working relationship is gonzo. So where is Yuki Tsunoda going to do? Sadly, it seems like there is no room at the Oracle Red Bull Racing in for the Japanese. It's techier than techie things. My heart is split ever so slightly in this, but ultimately, do you know what I mean? You live and die by virtue, by dint of your ability to perform. F1 is a piranha's tank, and performance is all that matters. Not only performance, to be more precise with my wording, your last performance. What have you done for me lately is all that matters in Formula 1. Oh, and by the way, Matt Bishop, legend, friend of the channel, one-time chief communication officer under Ron Dennis over at McLaren, legendary editor of F1 Racing magazine, worked alongside another friend of the channel, Peter D. Windsor. Good friends they are still. If you want to listen to a podcast, go and check out his podcast alongside Richard Williams, and colossally, that's History Podcast on all your favourite podcasting platforms. In Motorsport magazine, there are levels to this journalism game. Motorsport magazine is the god-tieriest one. When Matt Bishop pens an article, particularly around what's going on in real time around Christian Horner, you need to sit down, grab yourself a beverage and read. I will link it in the description chat. It is chaos. In the first instance, Matt Bishop lays down the context, saying that he was at EJ, legend of F1, at his funeral not long. He was sat alongside at the funeral one Christian Horner. Interesting, because the timing is key. He says that his conversation with Christian was chatty. He was chirpy, and this is only not less than 24 hours before his sacking. Oh, the humanity. Matt Bishop had front row seats, but Christian Horner didn't know. And here's how Matt Bishop found out. He outlines it in this God tier article. Again, link will be in the description. Says Horner, he and I conversed a while, but not for long. Loud, our chat was small talk. He appeared, did Christian, chipper and cheerful. 2 days later, however, continues Matt Bishop, as you know, his immediate departure from Red Bull Racing was announced. Straight away, I sent him a commiserating WhatsApp message, to which he replied swiftly, politely, and indeed chummily. I then asked him whether on Monday at EJ's funeral, when we were talking and chatting, had he known what was coming his way, being dismissed as team principal of Oracle Red Bull Racing. He said, quote, I had no idea on Monday. Christian Horner didn't know. He was none the wiser. They decided this behind closed doors and only notified him on the Tuesday, after which on the Wednesday, Christian Horner, being the man and team leader that he is, decided that he didn't want his team, his people, his guys and girls to find out by dint of any sort of press release or the F1 world of media and accredited journals. Techier than techie things, chat. And I'm telling you, it's only going to get techier. I'm going to do a lot of reading here, but I don't want to miss any details as far as Matt Bishop's God tier article. This is important. He argues the case about dismissal of one Christian Horner. Bishop says, yes, it's common knowledge that Jos Verstappen, Max's father, is not a Christian Horner fan. And indeed, March last year, he said that Red Bull team is in danger of imploding, being torn apart. It can't go on the way it will explode. Horner is playing the victim when he's the one causing the problems. Misconduct allegation gate. Eskimo brother settings. Christian Horner, allegedly, if word on the F1 curb is something in which he can be invested, told Nostradamus to stop dating his PA. Why? Whatever could that be for Christian Horner, a married man? What's that got to do with him overstepping his remit, allegedly? Matt Bishop continues, yes, Red Bull has recently suffered a significant senior technical and operational brain drain. Mention no names Adrian Newey to Aston Martin. Mention no names Rob Marshall to McLaren. Mention no names Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director to Audi, and others besides Will Courtenay as well. All those people have gone and not been hired as far as replacements. He continues, yes, Christian Horner made bad decisions as far as re-signing Checo Perez on the back of poor performance, materially poor performance from Checo Perez. He didn't win any races. He finished 8th that year. What are we doing there for? Extending Checo Perez by not 1 year, 2 years, and then having to cessate his contract and paying to the tune of 18 million for the privilege. Yes, continues Matt Bishop, Christian Horner's next driver selection could be described as eccentric at best and obtuse at worst, for he hired a near novice in Liam Lawson for 2025, despite most pundits advising him that that was the wrong decision. He was too young and that Liam Lawson would sink instead of swim. The circumstance too big at Red Bull Racing, alongside one of the best drivers that you'll ever see get behind an F1 wheel in Maximilian Verstappen. Yes, continues Matt Bishop, the 2025 season is shaping up to be Red Bull's least successful for some time, since McLaren will almost certainly win the F1 Constructors' World Championship, and either Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris will win the drivers. As the man in charge of the Red Bull team for the past 20 years, that responsibility, if we're pointing culpability fingers, argues Matt Bishop of Motorsport magazine, needs to get pointed at one Christian Horner. However, in comes the antithesis if we're playing F1 litigation games. He continues, and this is important to note, context is always key if you are arguing and having F1 modes of discourse. Since Horner took over in 2005, 2006, 2005 even, when Red Bull bought Jaguar, He has racked up 124 Grand Prix wins. That in and of itself is not for nothing, right? 124 Grand Prix. Do you know how many team principals come and leave F1 without even one Grand Prix win? Christian Horner, when all's said and done, when all's told, has 124, and not for nothing. 107 pole positions, 100 fastest laps, 8 driver championships, 6 constructors. What are we doing here? This dude has been God tier, nothing if not. Now, you can argue about his demeanour and his behaviour outside of the paddock. Again, you wouldn't want to show Christian Horner as the bastion of what it is to be the beacon of morality necessarily. But did he get it done on track? You bet your bottom dollar he did. Oh, and by the way, Bishop continues saying, nonetheless, the heady days or the heady days even appear to have gone for the moment for no driver other than Verstappen. And here's where it glaze, Cameron. You guys, some of you say that we glaze too much on this channel. That's why I don't even praise Maximilian Verstappen anymore. I allow other people to do it. And Matt Bishop, again, Leonardo da Vinci with a pen instead of a brush and an easel. Here's how he characterises Maximilian Verstappen's circumstance and performance. He continues, no other driver other than Maximilian Verstappen could have won the 2024 Drivers' World Championship in the RB20. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. The naysayers need to run for the hills now. This isn't me talking. This is Matt Bishop, man who's been around F1 longer than most of us, man who knows it acutely like the back of his hand, editor of F1 Racing back in the day, God tier F1 mind, and podcaster over at the Colossally and Colossally That's History podcast. It's techier than techie things. Here, let me continue. I'm going to read this out in full. I apologise. There's lots of reading. I don't like to do that today, but I don't want to miss not even a detail of this because it's popcorn worthy. He says, no other driver not named Max Verstappen could have won the 2024 Drivers' Championship in that Red Bull RB21. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've been barking up the tree for a long time, but now we're getting rubber stamped as far as our thesis and our line of travel by some of the god-tieriest F1 journos out there. No other driver, continues Bishop, not named Max Verstappen, could have won 2 Grand Prix in 2025 and counting in the RB21. You bet your bottom dollar, Mr. Bishop. I concur, sir. We are singing from the same hymn sheet now. He's built different, indeed the difference maker. Toto told you a couple of seasons ago that in Max Verstappen there is durable competitive advantage, materially so. Bishop continues, in other words, although what we are now seeing is not the first occurrence of a fantastically gifted F1 driver lauding it over his teammates with metronomic and mesmerising authority verbiage, any you know what I mean? Shakespearean settings from the Bish. He continues, in other words, although what we are seeing now is not the first occurrence of a fantastically gifted F1 driver lauding it over his teammates with metronomic and mesmerising authority, it may be the most pronounced instance of that phenomenon for a generation. And it is clear, continues Bishop, that over the past couple of seasons, Max's genius has been flattering the quality of his cars. Those cars have been dogs, SH1T boxes. Don't let anybody tell you any different. The naysayers, the detractors, the abbots of unreason do one of these, trying desperately to disbelieve the evidence of their own eyes and ears, will say differently. They will say that the car is not an SH1T box, that is the quickest on the grid. It has to be for Maximilian Verstappen to do the things that he's doing. Don't listen to them. Listen to those, the experts out here. Listen to the likes of Matt Bishop, who is telling you different. This is important. And he continues, are we going to get techier than techie things, chap? If I may. He says, yes, Schumacher usually outclassed all of his teammates. Yes, so did Ayrton Senna sometimes. So did Piquet. Yes, in a glorious spell of brilliance from 76 to 77. So did James Hunt. In 72, it was Fittipaldi. And so did Jim Clark always. There are other examples that I could cite, but F1 is more commercially cutthroat now than it was back then. The head honchos at Red Bull GmbH are used to winning acclimatized to it. They expect nothing less, therefore, continues Bishop, and they are not prepared to put up with not winning, therefore. I've often opined that the best... Here we go. Techie. Chat. Buckle up, chat. Oh, the humanity, Jomo, for real, for real. I have to go through this because it's that goddamn important. Listen to this. I've opined, says Matt Bishop, that the best measure of speed of an F1 car is the performance that the number 2 driver is achieving with it. Tsunoda-san, don't pay attention to what alien Max Verstappen is doing in the RB21, and then you want to look at a Saudi Arabia or a Suzuka qualifying or a British Grand Prix qualifying and say that that car's fast. Don't look at that. If you want to understand a true barometer, a benchmark of what that RB21 is capable of, then just look at the second driver. And each of them, for as near as makes no difference, all season have been nowhere. Tsunoda-san, Sol, you're a legend. Thank you so much for joining, sir. Each of them, in Tsunoda-san, Liam Lawson, Danny Rick before him, they've been gonzo. Checo Perez, they can't even get within 0.5 in super times terms of Maximilian Verstappen. So what does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury? Matt Bishop continues. I'm going to read it again because it's an important point, this. I've often opined, Matt Bishop's words, not mine, that the best measure of speed of an F1 car is the performance that the number 2 driver achieves with it. On that basis, the RB20 was mediocre at best and the RB21 is downright lousy, says Bishop. In Red Bull's corridors of power in Salzburg, that reality is simply not acceptable. And that's the altar at which Christian Horner needed to be sacrificed. Performance. Yeah, there were all these other bits and bobs going in the background. Did he win the political wrangling? Is that a fight that he could even win? Charlie Mividra, 2% transferred to an umbrella company over in Switzerland. Is that something that he could win? Probably not. But ultimately, if he was winning races, if he'd managed to build a car around Maximilian Verstappen capable of winning championships and of course therefore races, I argue that this would all fade to black. He continues. We're going to get techie. I apologise. I keep apologise for reading because I don't like to do it. I like to talk extemporaneously in free form, but this, you'll appreciate it, chap. Bishop continues. The weekend before last at Silverstone, Horner's final Grand Prix as Red Bull team principal, he was asked in a press conference whether he feared losing Max Verstappen. He replied with the following highly significant remark, says Bishop, quote, I remember Dietrich Mateschitz, the Red Bull owner and patriarch who died in October 2022, close brackets, telling me at the time, when 4-time World Drivers' Champion Sebastian Vettel had decided to leave Red Bull to join Ferrari at the end of 2014, he told me then that we don't need the best driver if we don't have the best car. Techier than techie things for Dietrich to say that. Matt Bishop doesn't agree. He puts forth this supposition. But there is another way of looking at the situation, and personally I would subscribe to that way. I would put it like this, continues Bishop. If you no longer have the best car, the only way of achieving respectable results is to cling to the best driver. John Perry, you're an absolute legend. RB21 will not be coveted for any personal car collections. I mean, how can it be? At this stage, it's almost consensus. Sons, the abbots of F1 Unreason. The consensus is clear. Everybody's sitting on that side of the vet. This car is not great. It's not market leading. Absolutely flipping not. Bishop continues, and thank you so much, John. You're an absolute legend. Far too kind as always. But there is another way of looking at that situation, and personally, I would subscribe to that other way. I would put it like this. If you no longer have the best car, I feel like I'm about to regurgitate an Ayrton Senna phrase. If you no longer go for the gap, then you are no longer a racing driver. If you no longer have the best car, says Matt Bishop, the only way of achieving respectable results is to cling to the best driver for dear life. Who's the best driver on the grid as at the 16th of the 7th, Thibaut 2.5, if not one Maximilian Verstappen? And that's where it gets techie than techie things. What is more, continues Matt Bishop, and here, buckle up, chat, because this is salacious, properly in the know level stuff. I have it on good authority, and again, all F1 journals are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Bishop is one of the god tier est ones. He says that I have it, quote, on good authority that Oliver Mintzlaff, managing director of Red Bull GmbH and Helmut Marko, Red Bull's F1 advisor, my inverted commas, because Marko's job title grossly underplays the power and influence of his position even, who were effectively Horner's bosses. Blimey, did he say Helmut Marko was Horner's boss alongside Oliver? Jeez. Anyway, view things my way. Ergo, the likes of Mintzlaff, the likes of Mark Mateschitz, the likes of Helmut Marko are acutely aware of the stakes with which they are dealing with, the hurdles over which they need to get. That, of course, is clinging on for dear life to Maximilian Verstappen, because imagine for a second that he leaves, Oracle Red Bull Racing ceases to exist as a market-leading team. Who's going to drive the car? Tsunoda-san, Liam Lawson, Arvid Lindblad, pull the other one. Absolutely no chance you are having a giraffe. That car is far too technical, far too temperamental, far too mercurial, far too understeery to snap oversteer. There is nobody on the grid that can drive that car not named Maximilian Verstappen. Bishop continues. And again, don't listen to me and my Max glazing. Listen to Matt Bishop, former editor of F1 Racing, former chief communications officer. The link to this article will be in the description. You will do yourself a disservice if you do not go and read it. Bishop continues. They view things my way. They understand that if you don't have the best car, unlike what Dietrich Mateschitz said, then what you need to do is cling on to the best driver with a view to do one of these, up the performance levels of the team, and so therefore flatter the car. As a result, continues Bishop, seeing Toto Wolff moving heaven and earth in his efforts to lure Max Verstappen away from Red Bull to join Mercedes, and hearing Max refuse to rule out such a move when asked about it by journalists, they determined to do whatever was necessary to find a way to persuade their unsettled star to reject Wolff's bounties and blandishments. If that means jettisoning Horner, then so be it. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The prosecution rests no further questions, Your Honour, right? Ultimately, Christian Horner, it was the underperformance, but ultimately, with a view to maximise their probability for keeping Christian Horner, for keeping Maximilian Verstappen even, they needed to sack Christian Horner. This isn't definitive. This doesn't mean Max will stay necessarily, but does it maximise the probability of it happening, of that being the eventuality? You bet your bottom dollar it does. Oh, and by the way, Matt Bishop bookends his brilliant soliloquy, his fantastic article this way. Link is in the description. Will their strategy work of jettisoning off Christian Horner, team principal extraordinaire? Who knows, continues Bishop. Right now, however, probably only Max Verstappen does. So let's put it this way, says Bishop. There are 2 Grand Prix between now and the commencement of the F1 summer shutdown, Spa and Hungary at the Hungaroring, after which the F1 season will resume at Zandvoort. Max is home race. One would imagine that Max would want to make sure that his 2026 plans are signed, sealed and delivered and announced by the time he next races in front of his adoring Orange Army, which in practice means that he needs to have everything sorted by the end of this month, July the 31st. That's not the first time you will have heard that date, and not the last time you will hear it. So time is of the essence, continues Bishop, and we will probably see some white smoke, to borrow a bit of the papal terminology, of or to do with the Pope, in weeks rather than months. Whatever the world's fastest and most famous Flying Dutchman chooses to do, make no mistake, it will be his choice and nobody else's. Not Team Verstappen, not Raymond Vermeulen, not Nostradamus, not Oliver, not Mintzlaff, not Mark, none of them. It will be Max's, because he has his pick of the litter. Rarely, continues Bishop, has an F1 driver been so unequivocally the master of his own destiny as Maximilian Verstappen is right now. Oh, the humanity. Discuss amongst yourself. Matt Bishop, I told you, Matt Bishop is Leonardo da Vinci with a pen instead of a brush and an easel. God tier each and every single time. I enjoy in particular the Max glazing portion, as you'd imagine that I would. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking Maximilian Verstappen, different level, James. If we're talking Maximilian Verstappen and having conversations in the hypotheticals about his future, Planet F1 have come out with a different level of article, giving the context as it needs to be given. They say that Maximilian Verstappen to Mercedes gets the green light as the new biggest obstacle emerges. So here's what it is. A signature of that proportion. Orange smoke, more like it, AG Zilla. Far too kind as always. So here's the thing. In order to make a signing of that magnitude, of that consequence and materiality as far as financial resources, you will need to run that by the board. We're talking about the hundreds of millions now as far as the remuneration requisite to bring Maximilian Verstappen to the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth. The buyout clause in and of itself is rumoured to be worth anywhere up to 102 million euros. The buyout clause by itself. And how much do you think per annum you're going to need to pay Max Verstappen to sign and stay at Mercedes? You're looking around 100 million per year as well, right? And you might be talking equity, you might be talking sponsorship, you might be talking title sponsorship deals. It's going to get techie than techie things. It will need to be a big deal. And I say all that to say this. In order to get that deal over the line, you can't just put that through. That's not my salary or yours. That's a humongous salary. You need to put that through the remuneration panel. Get the chair to rubber stamp it, lest you wish for your share price to do one of these. Ola Kalunius writes, Planet F1, the Mercedes chief executive has reportedly approved the team's move for Red Bull driver Max Verstappen for the 2026 season. Oh, the humanity. That was the one obstacle left. There was mens rea. There was a desire. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, had been dying to drop kick George Russell in the chest with a view to make the signature of Maximilian Verstappen happen. But it was always the rubber stamp of Ola Kalunius, the chair, the exec level bods over at Mercedes, Daimler, Sir Jim Radcliffe. Now that he has their rubber stamp, full steam ahead. What is there to lose? The only obstacle remaining for Maximilian Verstappen to go to the Mercedes team, the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth, is of course Maximilian Verstappen, whether he has the desire and the means, the wherewithal to get out of that bloody contract. Planet F1 continues, it's believed that Max Verstappen will be free to trigger an exit clause if he is lower than fourth, not second or third, as has been mooted. Fourth, say Planet F1, in the driver's standing after the Hungarian Grand Prix, the final race before F1 summer break at the start of August. Oh, the humanity. Now look, this is important here because I want to be accurate. Julianne Serasoli is a god-tier journo and she thinks lower than third. Planet F1 say lower than fourth. I've heard James Allen, I think, say lower than fourth. It's techie. Depending on who you talk to, you will get a very different version of events, and that matters, right? The details are important here. Planet F1 continues. Verstappen currently holds the third in the championship with 18 points in hand over George Russell, the driver he would ironically and counterintuitively most likely replace at Mercedes. They're both in this is a go slow race, therefore, at the next 2A. As far as George and Max are concerned, Charles Leclerc, the Ferrari driver who currently occupies 5th place, sits 28 points adrift. Continues this Planet F1 report, according to Sky Italy, the recent British Grand Prix, they claimed that Verstappen is closing in on a deal to join Mercedes for 2026, with the move awaiting approval from the Mercedes board. It came just days after George Russell, who was out of contract at the end of 2025, revealed that talks to take Max Verstappen to Mercedes are ongoing. This article continues. I apologise for the reading, chat, but sometimes you got to cover it comprehensively, right? Full send settings across the length and breadth. It is said that Max Verstappen is trying to find a way out of his Red Bull contract, and that stands to become the biggest obstacle to overcome at this stage of proceedings, with Russell and Leclerc unlikely to catch the world champion on points prior to the summer break. Therefore, this article puts forth the supposition this way. The performance clauses won't matter, at least of the driver's variety. That if there is one that speaks to the contracts that constructors standing, at the very least, maybe then he has hope. But if drivers is the priority and lower than third is the priority, then we're talking buyout clause rather than nulling and voiding his contract because of any stipulations and performance clauses. Another potential scenario, it is claimed, could see Max Verstappen, and here's where it gets techie, and I don't hear any other publications talking about this circumstance in this much detail. This is important, chat. Another potential scenario, it is claimed, says Planet F1, could see Max Verstappen signing on the quiet, in inverted commas, for Mercedes right away, with the deal only coming into effect in 2027. Oh, the humanity. Let's break this down then. Because I recall a couple different publications were talking about George Russell being offered a 1+1 deal, the very same deal that they tried to offer and got denied by one Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton. Sir Lewis is like 1+1. You're going to give me a 1-year deal with a 1-year option. What are you talking about? And George is well within his rights to decline that offer as well, at the altar of him being in his bloody prime and driving season to date. A bloody brilliant season, 1+1. Why would George accept that? Therefore, and that links in, they would only give him a 1+1 if indeed at the start of 2027 they would want to have another bum in seat. Sometimes it's a pofferneer, but sometimes the causation dots just line up like ducks in a row, fit together nice and succinctly, beautifully, just like a jigsaw puzzle. Planet F1 continues. It estimates that Verstappen's current contract is believed to be worth $75 million. That's $75 million, £55.8 million, 64.2 million euros at current exchange rates per season. Ergo, $75 million US. They'd have to give him at least 100 if they're going to sign him per year. For comparison, Russell is thought to be on $23 million. His teammate Antonelli is on $2 million. Ola Kalunius, who did, context again, sometimes it's important to look back so you can understand what's going to happen, forward forecast. Mr. Kalunius, again, chief exec or whatever his title is, bigwig, big dog who rubber stamps these big deals at Mercedes, who succeeded Zietcher at Mercedes as chairman in 2019, is thought to have been central to the team's attempts to sign Max Verstappen over the last 12 months. A fist stinks from the head down. If you don't get the buy-in from the C-suite exec level bods, then you don't have buy-in. If Toto can't get that rubber stamp from the C-suite exec level ones at the Silver Arrow team, the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixton, then there is no sign Max Verstappen conversation to be had. Apparently, though, those conversations have been had, and that rubber stamp has been rubber stamped in 2024. And this is for context. Really good article by Planet F1. I'll link that in the description as well. I could go and read that too. In 2024, this article continues. The late F1 team owner Eddie Jordan claimed that Kalunius had met with Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff and one third owner Sir Jim Radcliffe in Monaco to prepare a fighting fund, quote unquote, to cover Max Verstappen's salary, with the Red Bull driver said to be aware of the meeting. Oh, the humanity. This didn't just happen, transpire all of a sudden, come to being yesterday. This has been going on for a long time, ladies and gentlemen, the F1 jury. And where there is a will in F1 and financial resource, some say there is a way. This article continues. During a visit to last year's Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, meanwhile, Kalunius quipped that Verstappen would look good in silver as he teased the move for the World Championship ahead of the big 2026 rule and reg change. He told Sky Germany, the best driver, mention no names, Max Verstappen, wants to have the best car, and that's our job to bring the best package together. Of course, at the altar of the power unit, God tier levels of Mercedes. A la 2014 split turbo hybrid settings. The cards will be shuffled in 2026, continued Kalunius, speaking to Sky Germany. New order with new rules. That's also an opportunity, but who knows? ? But I think Max would look good in silver, wouldn't he? Chat, I don't know what to say. this is because this is getting realer. This is now realer than it gets. The context is key. There is mens rea. There is a desire there for Mercedes to sign him. And now they've got the bloody rubber stamp from the key stakeholders, Safak. I hope Max leaves everywhere he's better than Red Bull at the moment. Z, Team Redline and other things he's interested in, potentially he could get involved in. That would Mercedes give him, carte blanche to go and do those things though? Would they give him sufficient bandwidth and runway, as have done Oracle Red Bull Racing? I mean, that's got to be, they've got to, eh? That's got to be an added feather in Max Verstappen's cap if he were to sign. John says, cannot run with the big dogs if you still squat to PP like a let's go. Turtle, the legend that is. Can we hit 200? Like, you're a legend, Joanna. I feel bad for George. He's doing a good job with the under. He's doing a brilliant job. He's doing a fantastic. He's been incredible. Driver of the season? Question mark. Potentially, he'd be in the running. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't have the conversation without mentioning King George Russell's name. Of course, he's right there, and so that they disrespect him at the altar. Listen, let me make it clear. If you have you have in one hand as team principal the opportunity to sign Maximilian Verstappen, and in the other the opportunity to extend George Russell, this just goes away, right? It's not even close. But you've got to contextualize that with money and financial resources and potential disharmony, some may say. OG Zilly, legend. They did it for Lewis. 1+1. That's why Lewis left, Chiba. As a Red Bull fan, I agree. He would look good in silver. I mean, black is the picture, right? That's the one that's going around. OG Zilla, Red Bull I know the 4 times curse has decimated the team. Only way for Max to break it is to leave. This is the way. I suppose OG Zilla, and too kind as always. So what's sad in this OG Zilla is that I wanted to live through, I mean, we all lived through Michael Schumacher's 5 consecutive. I was a bit young then, and I don't think I appreciated the gargantuan task that the Regenmeister was undertaking. I would have liked to, in my lifetime, with my son and my wife, seen a 5-time champion. That's the honest truth. And it looks like we might have to wait a while now. Might have to wait for Max to start doing again in a black set of black overalls potentially. But OG Zilly, you mentioned a point. I don't think it's the 4-time. I get the curse is real. But that's not what's decimated Red Bull. What's decimated Red Bull is allowing, per Matt Bishop, the likes of Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Courtenay, Marshall to leave that team without being replaced. If you don't have good people, if you don't get and keep them, then you have no team. You will not win races and you will not win championships, therefore. That's the problem. Talk to anyone. Peter Windsor's told me, friend of the channel, has told me this on a gazillion occasion. F1 is simple. It is a function. You win and lose your races by dint of the people that you get and keep. And when the likes of Marshall and Wheatley and Newey and now Horner and Courtenay, when they all walk out the door, you're not going to tell me with a straight face that there's not going to be downside as far as operational performance on that team. The curse is a real thing. I mean, it's hard to win 4, forget it. It's definitely, it's hard, even harder to win 7. Not that Sir Lewis when he's back to back, but he was on for 5, wasn't he? Yeah, it's just difficult. It is really, really tough. He wants to say he won't take GP with him potentially, but I imagine per Bono, there will be non-compete clauses, I think they call them. I feel Max's dad could be a problem for Toto. Apparently, it feels like Toto's been trying to kiss some babies' heads, right? He's been trying to foster no curry favour as far as Jos Verstappen saying, around Silverstone 2021, the one thing that I didn't do well, I should have picked up the phone to Jos. We've always had a good relationship. Have you heard all this stuff? I feel like that's been over the past 6 months. Toto's been doing his best pucker up impression to one Nostradamus Verstappen, keen to mend that relationship because he knows the importance of stakeholder management. You can't sign Max unless you have the backing and the favour of Jos. And that's what makes me know that Toto Wolff is in this for a penny, in for a pound. Do we see Red Bull stripped down to some point, Racing Bulls get sold off? I don't know. I don't know, G-Man. It would be disingenuous for me to comment on such things. So I don't think anybody knows at this stage. I mean, if Matt Bishop doesn't know, then sadly I can't. Max is a lion, not a euphemism. He knows no fear. He wants to have the best hunting ground. He's surrounded by weak pride, tied to move it. Very well said, John. Different levels of verbiage. John, when's the article coming out? Why haven't Motorsport magazine hired yet? Fran says, Z, less adoption friction if he takes him. Painful watching Sir Lewis. And for, oh my gosh, I was gonna spend some time. We'll talk about Lewis tomorrow at some point in the aft, because I saw a cheeky slide that was alluding to, I'll read it out quickly because it makes me sad, this. Bookend with a bit of a Lewis Hamilton slander as per usual. So, the Sir Lewis Hamilton fundamentalists say, here's the thing. This is really, really important. As far as the qualifying performance between Sir Lewis, not that you don't win any points on Saturday, right? But as far as the qualifying performance between Lewis and Charles' season to date, it's gotten a bit techie, hasn't it? I mean, well, listen, we'll go for it tomorrow. Your boy's ill prepared. OG Zilla, where will Helmut end up in all of this? I think he might go to sweeten the deal. Max won't want to move without Helmut Marko. I mean, there was a Helmut Marko clause a long while ago until Helmut extended his contract with Red Bull and made sure that Helmut Marko clause was no longer in Max's contract. The Helmut clause read something like, if Helmut leaves Red Bull, then Max Verstappen can too, null and void his contract with immediate effect. That's no longer there. But that doesn't mean to say that loyalty and familiarity and the fact that Max will see Helmut Marko as his guy yet and still as at July 2024. I think he'll come into the... I can't see Helmut staying at Red Bull. One or two things will happen. Either Helmut will come across to Mercedes just as did Niki Lauda before. He'll be that type of figure, or he'll retire. He won't stay at Red Bull after Maximilian Verstappen leaves. It's hard. He's Max's guy. You know what I mean? Max is his guy. They're a dual threat. They come as a pair. It is like peas in a pod. Love the rain, shine. You're a legend. Retire. Oh, the humanity as a non-exec role. I feel like he's already is he not on a non-exec? I feel like if you look at the accounts, I've done this at some point in the not too distant past. I swear I have. If you look on they still need to file accounts, don't they? Even though they're a private company. And if you look on Red Bull's accounts, you'll see that Helmut Marko, somewhere, I've seen it, Helmut Marko is listed as a non-exec director, I think. Chaos, a tyrant he is. Right, guys, I'm going to run. You guys have been legends. I apologise for being long today, but sometimes life be life. I wanted to read you out those articles. Go and check them out. I'm going to link Matt Bishop's in the description. So too the one from Planet F1. Both of them are God tier. Motorsport magazine, you might need a cheeky subscription, but if you like God tier pros and God tier F1 news, gossip, etc., and reminiscences, nostalgia settings from Matt Bishop. I said to Shez and Baxley, let me bookend with this. I said to Shez and Baxley after reading that article that I felt privileged. I almost got emotional reading that Matt Bishop article because it was brilliant. I felt like I was watching a Max Verstappen Suzuka qualifying lap or something. It was just brilliantly well written. It was insightful, and I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a bit. Maybe it's a nothing burger, and your boy's getting too emotional, too old, and too grey of beard. You guys have been legends. Do me a favour and smash. If you liked the video, then like the video. Smash the subscribe on your way out. And we'll be back same time tomorrow. Same place, same time tomorrow. Between now and then, drink some water and remember to look